I am a second-year medical student. For the first time, my classmates and I have been sent out on the wards to interview patients. I am nervous. I am in a new role, and I am still uncomfortable in that role. My job is to learn, and I am hyper aware that this role will provide no benefit whatsoever to the patient who has been tasked with entertaining me for the next hour. I am sent to a pediatric ward. A young patient, around 13 years old, and her mother have agreed to be interviewed by a medical student. I walk in with my preceptor, who introduces me, then watches me as I fumble nervously with my notes to ask my first few questions. After a few minutes, he leaves, and it is me, the patient, and the family member. Of the different roles I've previously experienced in similar scenarios to this one, medical student is not one of them. The patient is on an iPad working on some sort of impressive 3D graphical design application that only further intimidates me. At first, she rarely looks up, choosing to ignore or answer my questions with a single word. Her mother is more engaged, and I begin to wonder who it was who agreed to this whole arrangement in the first place. I come to understand that this is not this young woman's first hospitalization. In fact, it is one of about a dozen in just the past couple of years. As I continue to ask questions, she gradually opens up about her chronic gastrointestinal condition and her many experiences in the hospital. "Don't tell the other doctors I talked to her," she whispers to her mother. "Why not?" I ask. "She doesn't like the other doctors," her mom explains. As I probe further, she tells me about the many times she had awoken to physicians poking her stomach, performing physical exam maneuvers I had learned in class without first asking her permission. I wish I could say I was surprised to hear this, but instead, I nod knowingly. And all I can say is, I'm sorry. I continue to try and provide some reassurance, say my goodbyes, and leave the room. As I walk back to my apartment to debrief the interview with my precepting group, the streets of New York disappear. I am no longer a budding medical student in a competitive New York City hospital. I am a teenage patient in another teaching hospital, surrounded by a team of people in scrubs that are largely unfamiliar to me. One of them, a young male, is holding a frighteningly large tube. He explains what's about to happen. "What if I don't want that?" I ask. "Well," he says, apologetically but firmly, "basically, this is what we need to do." I look desperately around the room, trying to catch the eye of someone who will explain my other options. Everyone stares back seriously, unflinching. My mother, standing in the corner of the room, offers a sad, defeated shrug. That is when I understand. I have no options, no choice in the matter. This is what is happening. I roll over as the medical team closes in. I try not to be present as the resident performs the invasive procedure in front of this small audience, but the pain jolts me back to reality. It feels like minutes go by, but it is probably all over in under 60 seconds. All normal, the team tells me, and the procession marches out of the room. All normal. No useful information. It was all for nothing, I think. I'm back in the room with my mother, who has watched the whole process. And I'm left still, silently crying and clutching the frame of my hospital bed. She tries to comfort me, but understandably has little to say. A few minutes go by, and I notice tears quietly falling down her face as well. Back in New York, I return to my apartment and debrief my interview with the young patient with my preceptor over Zoom. Then, I spend the following week in a depressive fugue state. In this fog, I reach out to my wellness advisor, who encourages me to discuss it with my therapist. I do, and it helps, somewhat. In an effort to do something about what I've just witnessed, I arrange a meeting with the course director. She thanks me for bringing the issue to her attention and reassures me that we all sometimes have experiences with patients that trigger memories, whether it be a friend, a family member, or personal experience. She tells me that there will be a lesson and discussion on consent in a future session. In the weeks and months that follow, no such larger discussion materializes. It was the first time I had encountered a violation of consent in the role of provider, but it wouldn't be the last. The experience forced me to think more deeply about my own past experiences and my role moving forward. What is the true meaning of consent in a medical context? Why has it only been discussed during my education in terms of liability, in terms of physicians not getting sued for violating it, and in terms of capacity or our right to take over decision-making capabilities for our patients? What about the lasting trauma and psychological impact that occurs when we violate a patient's consent, regardless of what we understand to be medically best for them? What about the moral injury that occurs when we deem our wishes for an individual's body to be above theirs? How can I integrate my lasting trauma at the hands of medical doctors with what I continue to be taught day in and day out, with what has been normalized in our medical culture? I still don't have the answers to these questions. I still struggle with them regularly in the hospital. And I still find myself flashing back to that painful day and others like it when my own consent was violated as a patient. Though, thankfully, these flashbacks have decreased in severity with repeated exposure. Medical assault, I start to call it in my mind. For a while, this seemed dramatic. Was I overstating what had happened to me and what I all too often witnessed happening to others? Could it be that people who I'm sure had their patients' best interests in mind, who did want to do right by their patients, could have perpetrated assault? Over this winter break, I had some time to watch some TV while home visiting my family. After seeing ads for a new show, Fleischman is in Trouble, a drama series about a doctor living on the Upper East Side, I decided to watch. At the risk of giving away a few spoilers here, before I get to the spoilers, when I watched this show, I was expecting to connect most with the title character and his escapades in the hospital, but instead found myself identifying with his estranged ex-wife. Now, at the risk of giving away a few spoilers here, for those who haven't seen the show, his ex-wife experiences a violation of her consent by the doctor delivering her first child. In an effort to process her trauma and grief following this event, she attends a support group for sexual assault survivors. She knows that their experiences differ from her own, yet she also realizes that there are certain similarities. In the first meeting she attends, she is unable to speak about what has happened to her and just sobs loudly and intensely in the way Claire Danes can so convincingly do. In watching her character, I felt seen. This story, this trauma, is not mine alone, but is something so many have gone through in our medical system and have had to grapple with. In watching her story, I was inspired to write and share my own story via an anonymous monologue performance at my school. In sharing it, I hope that some of you all here today feel seen as well. I also hope that some of you will take some extra time in your medical practice before touching any patient, before performing any procedure, before doing something to someone else's body. Take a moment to ask, is this okay with you? And listen to the answer.